I have created a presentation that talks about the top 3, I guess I'd call them guidelines or necessities, if you want to really be able to grow a business. Does that feel like that would still be kind of useful?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And particularly the third one is speaking to what happens when you're in a world where your world is partly and maybe mostly online right now. Your competitors are moving to really be online, and how it is that what you have to do that. So there are a couple of things Bob hinted at that I have a different model, he called it. I would say philosophy about how I work. And I want to describe that to you because you're going to hear it in what I'm saying here. So if you don't like my philosophy, you can leave earlier. It's up to you. I think you'll want to stay because my clients grow at a rate of about 40 to 60% a year in revenues. So I'm not talking small growth. I'm going to talk to you about what it takes to actually leapfrog kinds of things. And some of these are really small and some of them are really large. I have everything from DuPont's TiO2 business to small little stores that are even in New York City. All right, so we got scale. Philosophically, I approach business, and what I say is there are two things. There's what you build and there's how you build it. The what you build, I conceive of being done what I call developmentally, which means I'm always looking at how you get the next level of potential. I'm not looking at how you create something and do it over and over and over and over again until you get it absolutely perfect and you never have to think about it. That's boring as hell, it won't grow anything, and it will actually cause you to go downhill. So I'm talking about the kind of business that actually evolves, changes, creates, moves as the market's moving, gets really connected to something that's really alive. So that's the what. The second is the how, and for me that's responsibly, like there's an ethic built into it, and it basically means that everything you touch benefits. Not you do a little less harm to some and a little more to others. It's like you learn how to do everything so all the stakeholders benefit. So you need to know philosophically that's where I come from. What Bob didn't say is I have a current book out called The Responsible Business. It has those two ideas and it has 8 case studies around the world, and it's for sale at Edmonds bookstore, always. It's always been there. Now, so if those two philosophical stamps still sound okay to you, I'm going to proceed. And I created a handout because I thought, I actually have PowerPoint too, but I want it without my computer. So I'm going to give you, you want to go both directions? Or I'll go to, okay, great. I'm going to leave it to you.
Well, Carol, you know, we have Art Walk tonight in First Dibs, and that's probably
Yeah, no,
affecting the audience.
I don't take anything personally. You know, I have a life too, and I often can't show up at things I'd like to be at. So we're filming it for anybody who wants to see it later. Between Teresa and I, we're going to figure out how we can show it to people, right?
Yes, we are.
Right. So, and if need be, I'll do it again and again and again until we get the people who need to know it here. All right, so what this says is, here's the title, Growing Your Business in the Age of Virtual and Physical Customers and Competitors. Bob, that's a great title. Under it, I say the 3 not so easy steps to getting there, but they're doable. Now, I want to stress that a little bit, because what it takes to actually, and you won't know what the other things mean, so reading ahead won't do you any good, so just stay with me, okay? So the 3, what I mean by 3 not so easy steps is growing a business is not a cakewalk. It is not something you can kind of do, you know, like in the evening for about 20 minutes. Even if you go get on Twitter and Facebook and all of those things, you cannot grow a business that way. So I want to make it very clear the work I'm talking about here will take some effort. And it will take some thinking. Now I'm going to talk with you as much as I can about how you can do that on your own. There are things in my book that tell you more about it. There are things all over my websites that tell you more about it. So there's resources to keep going. But just here in like an hour, you know, an hour and 15 minutes, we're going to look at how we could do the first step of these. The first one of the things that the biggest error, I think, there are 2 of them, but the biggest error that small businesses make is they think about competition first. It's like looking sideways instead of looking forward when you're walking. So just imagine you're walking down a street that has all sorts of lumps and breaks in the sidewalk and trees that are growing up, and to try and figure out where you're going, you're walking sideways, right? Your head's sideways, or you've turned your whole body sideways. That is what it's like when you spend your time looking at what your competitors are doing. So if you're going and getting online and tracking what they're charging, what they're offering, how they've changed it, if you go sign up for all their stuff and you spend all your energy reading it, you're walking sideways in business. So the first thing that you have to get to doing is working forward. And what that means to me is coming to understand who you are uniquely that no one else could be, no matter how hard they tried. So I call that know your essence. And essence is kind of a funny term, but it literally means what's at the core, the heart of you that makes you so distinctive that if you remembered that every day and designed everything from that and engaged all your employees from that, you would be being you all the time. When somebody walked into your store or came online to hire you, whether it is a grocery store, and I've worked with the whole grocery industry, and they're the worst competitors in the world. I mean, they spend so much time tracking each other, and the margins are so small that you have to do something nuts, right? But it doesn't help. The ones who really figure out distinctively who they are get the margins, right? E.g. Whole Foods, right? Their margins are triple the grocery industry, right? I mean, when we all like to have triple, so this is related to how margins happen. So if you actually would like to have better margins in addition to just more people coming in, you have to figure out what your essence is. Now let me give you a couple of examples of what I mean by that, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you do it. And I'm even going to play just a little bit with Day in doing one, okay? So if you're willing to play.
Sure.
All right. What I mean by this, well, let's do the example. So there is a company called Merida Meridian. They're a very small manufacturer. They manufacture in Boston, but they have a showroom, a retail showroom for textiles in New York City. Now you can imagine the ridiculous competitiveness of being in the home decorating industry in New York City, in the district where everybody comes to look at home decorating. When I first started working with Merida Meridian, they had an entire program on competitive assessments that ran around the clock. And every meeting they came into in the morning, somebody reported on a competitor. There was assigned a competitor to track. And so when I first walked in, I asked them, I said, what's unique about your business? So they started talking about how they were a little different than this competitor, a little different than that one. And I said, so how do your customers see you? Do they see you as different than those? Well, we know they buy on price. And I said, really? How do you know they buy on price? Well, everybody buys on price. So we went around there, we asked each person what in their home, go through everything, what's the favorite thing you have in your home? So they would list what they had in their home. Sometimes it was their car in the garage, or their pickup truck, or their lawnmower in the backyard. And I would say, so how did you pick that? And they talked about all they went through thinking about their life, how it was that this thing was going to make a difference for them. And they picked it based on what it was going to do in their life. No one in that room of 17 managers picked their favorite things based on price. Not one of them. In addition to that, what they had done is they had done a little price comparison, but most of them had said, yeah, but that doesn't do what I want. And I said, well, how did you know that? How did you know that it wouldn't do when you looked at the others that were a little less? And they said, well, they told you. It was really clear. I mean, you could see it. And they had comments on the thing that people were saying, here's what it did for me and how it works. I said, so when you buy some, oh, and then by the way, I said, and how much more did you pay for that? People were pulling, checking with their books and found that on average they paid 22% more than the other option. That is the average in the market for people buying things they love and are meaningful to them in life, 22% more. Isn't that nice? So it's a good thing to remember. If you can be clear about who you are and you can present yourself in a way that the market can know who you are, and there's still some work to do. We may need signs from Randy, but there is something that you have to do to get people clear about. You first have to get clear who you are, and you have to be able to present that. And then people have to be able to find you, and it has to all be tied to that same essential, unique thing. In each case, they described to me how unique what they bought was, how distinctive it was. And part of this, and the reason, this you need to write down, the reason people buy things that are unique and distinctive is they want to differentiate themselves. All of us want to be different. We don't want to be like the people next to us. There's the competition of the Joneses, but more than that, there's just kind of, and it's not even a competitive thing. It's like we are a unique being and we want to be seen as unique, we want to live unique. We lose track of that when we start tracking competitors. We don't find what's the essence, and so what did we do with Merit and Meridian? So finally, it took me about, I don't know, almost a year to slow them down on these competitive assessments they were doing and ask, what really makes you unique and distinctive? They started describing to me these artisans that they have in Brazil and Indonesia who they have been working with to bring them back because they were losing the elders who knew how to do the weaving, who knew how to do the dyeing. And I said, wow, that's an amazing story. I don't see that on your website anywhere. And they said, well, nobody cares about that. I said, are you sure? Artisan, bespoke kinds of designs are extraordinary. Do you know how much more people pay for the artisan quality? It's, you know, it has to be great design, well made, but do you know how much more they pay for that? So they went and researched what people were paying a little more, and they discovered it's like about 140%. I mean, these are not small numbers I'm talking about, right? These are huge numbers, right? Now what we did is we started to look at that who they really were. This uniqueness they had was not only this artisan ability of the people who were, and they also had many in the US. They had a lot of Vietnamese, Laotian weavers who were living in the US now, were trying to bring back the weaving skills. They also had natural fibers. But the thing that was so amazing is these artisans, like no other competitor out there, could take a design, like if you were an interior designer and you came in and said, I'd like to brand myself. I'd like for the rugs and the pillows that I designed to be able to be uniquely me, they could do that.